Hello friends, it's Matt here from pianoblog.com. If you notice the different background today, it's because I'm visiting some family in Washington, D.C., but I want to take some time to tell you 11 things I wish I had known as a young piano major, a young music major just starting out. And these 11 things don't apply only to music majors, but it's specifically for music majors. But I think anyone who's young or old and starting out might probably find these interesting. I was thinking of this recently because I have a student who's graduating high school and going on to be a piano performance major. And whenever something like that happens, it's really gratifying because you're just happy to see a student go on in music, but you also know that there's a lot coming up, a lot of challenges, a lot of pitfalls, life lessons, things like that. So I guess subconsciously over the years, every time this happens, I've built up this sort of list of advice. And it might seem a little bit preachy, I'm sorry if it does, but it really is stuff that I wish someone had told me when I was starting out as a music major when I was younger. So here's my 11 things. It's Matt's things I wish someone had told me as a music major when I was younger. Number one, probably the most important thing, never let someone tell you what you can and can't do, what you are or are not capable of. People who give this so-called advice are the people you need to move away from. If people tell you you're not capable of doing something, move away from them. You may be capable of it, you may not, but almost always people who aren't encouraging you to try are bitter or resentful because they themselves didn't try or they themselves failed and gave up. And you encounter, unfortunately, a lot of these people who will say, you're just not good enough to do this, you're not good enough to do that. You need to move away from those people, accept that yes, you might fail a lot, you might go through a lot of hard times, but that doesn't mean that those people are giving you advice. They're talking out of a place of bitterness or resentment themselves. Number two is people who broadcast how good they are do so out of low self-worth. So a lot of times, you have people, and this happens in music and many other professions too, who'll be very kind of braggadocious or whatever the term is. They'll tell you how great they are and they'll be very critical of you. Those people almost always are coming from a place of low self-worth. They're not actually doing this because they're so great themselves. And I've had friends, I think of one friend I had who he had a very thick accent, and I'm from Lower Delaware where I didn't know many people, or I'd never interacted with many great musicians before I went off to school, and I was just intimidated by this person. He would always criticize my playing and stuff like that. I was just so scared to play in front of him. And then finally, after months of being friends, I heard him play, and it was like, oh, hey, you're all right, I guess, but you're nothing as great as I had imagined in my head. So really beware of people who are telling you how great they are, broadcasting how great they are. Number three is learn from failures. Failures are data, they're not moral issues. The more that you can fail without it being catastrophic, the quicker you can analyze what went wrong and learn from that experience. So if you're failing, that means you're moving. Now, that doesn't mean you want to fail so much that you land up in jail or lose your fortune or whatever it is. But try things out, push the limits without totally breaking yourself down, because you want to fail as much as you can. Number four is kind of some practical advice. Start investing now. I'm very emphatic about this. I knew when I was younger that I probably should start investing, putting my money away, but I didn't do it, and I really regret that I didn't start younger, just kind of month to month putting my money away, letting it accrue interest and compounding interest and all of that. So if you're a music major especially, you're in a career that's not going to pay as much as your counterparts or your friends who are becoming doctors and lawyers and that necessarily. But you can actually maybe even be wealthier than them down the road if you get in the habit of putting money away month to month and just letting that compound. Now, I'm not going to give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, so you can do your own research on this, but what I personally do is I have a low fee, broad mutual fund that I put my money in. or it's actually no fee. But you have to do your own research and think what you think is the best investment. But really, I wish someone had told me this, especially as a musician, because if you start saving that money now, you're going to be in a lot better place down the road. Number 5, pay close attention to what interests you. You can't necessarily have one set path. Like, I'm going to become this type of musician. This is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to be a piano performer and have this career, and that's it. You have to pay attention to, these are like little things that interest me. So for example, I've always been really picky about certain things, especially about how things sound, and I've noticed that I've enjoyed explaining things to people. So I was able to put that together into a teaching career where people actually pay me to listen to them and criticize them or tell them how to fix things. And if I hadn't paid attention to that and just thought, oh no, my only course is that I have to be a piano performer, and not paid attention to things like, I really don't enjoy the stress of being on stage every day, I would have only gone in one particular direction and not have been as happy. So you have to really pay attention to those things. Number 6 is figure out, this is sort of the same thing, but figure out what parts of those things people are willing to pay you money for, and don't be afraid to market yourself. As musicians especially, we tend to maybe be a little bit shy, and the better musicians tend to be especially shy about marketing themselves. But as you go along, get good at, without kind of putting it in people's faces, get good at saying, yeah, I'm pretty good at this. And when as you kind of get older, when you know what your strengths are, you'll get better and better at marketing yourself. Number 7, this is a big one, I think. Start experimenting with making a living as early as possible. I think it's really unfortunate that a lot of people go through music school and then they don't have any idea how they're actually going to make a living. So for myself, I taught lessons actually through undergrad. This is one point that I actually did do. And I'm really glad I did that, because when I got out of grad school, I had already had several years of teaching under my belt. It was very, very easy for me to continue on. And people who didn't think at all about how they were going to make money after school had a really tough time of like, oh my gosh, great, I'm a great piano player, or a great musician, but how am I actually going to make a living? I'm not sure. So I think it's really good to start experimenting with making a living as early as possible. You want to get some skin in the game in the real world, because college isn't really the real world, and start experimenting with that. Number 8 is you will not even remember the things that seem unbearable and dramatic 10 years from now. So when you're younger, everything might seem like, oh gosh, I'm depressed because of this or that, or this is just totally unbearable. And then as you get older, I think you get a little bit of perspective, like, well, this is going to pass. And I don't even, the things that when I was in undergraduate, 18, 19, 20-year-old, that I thought were just unbelievably traumatic, I don't remember them even right now. So I think it's helpful to hear that from people. Number 9 is routines and habits matter way more than goals. So the best goals almost always are on a several-year time horizon, which means if you're too focused on getting the goal, you're going to feel like you're failing and you're going to give up too soon. So for example, my routine in business is that I am constantly starting new businesses and trying new things, and most of them fail. So if I was too focused on I just have to be successful in business, I would have given up a long time ago. I would never have started a music school. I would never have had any sort of success in that area, because I would have failed in my previous pursuits. And number 10 is you are good enough just how you are. This is a really important one. A lot of us, especially as artists, sometimes feel like we're trying to prove ourselves to people. And it's good to realize that you don't have to do that. You're good enough just how you are. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Just focus on growing, and sometimes you'll fail. Many times you'll fail. You'll go through whole, maybe years where you're failing. But that means that you're trying, and that's the most important thing, is that you're just trying to move ahead. So stop trying to prove yourself. You're already good enough as a human being, and just keep focusing on growing and growing from day to day. And then number 11 is most people who give advice won't be around when it doesn't work out. So you have to think for yourself, and that includes all 11 of these points. Think for yourself, because I'm not going to be around if it fails to make you feel better. You have to think for yourself about what works and what doesn't work. All right, well, that is my list of 11 things I wish I had known when I was younger, especially as a music major. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this sort of stuff, make sure you please check out pianoblog.com, where you'll see right there on the front page I have free piano lessons, free piano technique lessons, and also please subscribe to this channel. There's a button, it's here or here, I'm not sure, but you can subscribe to this channel. That means a lot to me every time I get a subscription. And like this video and comment down below. I answer all the comments and questions and love to hear from y'all. So that's it. I post very frequently, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.